The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, and Derek Eagleton.
Welcome back to another episode of The Break. That's kind of how
Nice. What are those
Derek
numbers?
does it sometimes.
You got the numbers?
The Break.
Nice.
No, I do not have the number, but Patrick, go ahead and turn around. Let's start this conversation. We got Patrick, Brian, and then me. And we're going to get this show rolling. We're going to get into the whole scouting report offense, Philadelphia Eagles offense versus the Cowboys defense. In the meantime, we're going to start with a quick injury report on where we're at with injuries compared to what we had. Not much changing from yesterday, but go ahead.
The good news is you're only looking at two individuals as opposed to the laundry list that was, prior to the bye week. But obviously, Tyron Smith had the neck stinger pop up last week, and he was sidelined against the Los Angeles Rams. He's not expected to practice on today, Wednesday, per Mike McCarthy. He'll be in the rehab group. So injury report should read DNP for him, which is did not participate. Chuma Edoga, some positive news there. Obviously, he left the game against the Rams late with what's described as a low ankle injury, which is much better than a high ankle injury. Evidence to that being is expected to be limited today in practice. Chuma is, which gives him a shot at taking the field on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. On yesterday, owner and general manager Jerry Jones told 105.3 The Fan that it's quite likely, quite possible, I should say, that both will take the field on Sunday, but he did say at least one of them likely would. So we'll see how the week goes. Obviously, today, no Tyron Smith in practice. We'll see what it looks like on Thursday.
And then if neither, we saw what happened.
If neither, then it's going to be rookie fifth-round pick Awesome Richards. That's who came in for.
And we got a taste of that last week.
And we got a taste of that last week when Udoka exited. And Richards, he can play some solid ball. I see a lot of potential for him, high ceiling guy. But this would definitely be, you talk about throwing a guy into the fire, this would be it. So if for whatever reason, and again, the Cowboys are optimistic that one or both, Edoga or Tyron Smith will take the field. But if things go left and that's not the case, then yes, Richards would absolutely be thrown into the fire against arguably the best defensive front in the NFL.
All right, now let's talk some trade. Trades that happened, trades that didn't happen. Cowboys, we know they did not make any news on headlines yesterday, but other teams did. And we spent a whole chunk of yesterday's show talking about other teams, who scared us, what we thought, and we did see the 49ers added extra talent to their defense. They made a trade with the Commanders to trade for Chase Young, only for a third-round pick. Which was a pretty good deal, I would say. And then we had some other trades happening, but wanted to get, Brian, let's start with you with just your initial reaction to the trades that were happening yesterday.
49ers made a trade last year for Christian McCaffrey for the Carolina Panthers that's often injured. He had, if you look at his Carolina career, there was some absolute brilliance to it, but there was a lot of heartbreak along the way when it came to his availability and lack of. The 49ers made another trade this year. Same situation. Chase Young, you look at him and where he was placed in a lot of scouts' minds, where it got of Ohio State, what you thought about him as a player, what you thought about him as a disruptive player, an edge rusher, a guy that can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, can play the run, but often injured. There was some people in the Commanders camp that were like, this guy's availability is very limited to what we're trying to do right now. And here the 49ers, they swoop in again. I think they've made two trades back-to-back that could absolutely help their football team. We've seen what Christian McCaffrey can do. Chase Young, he's played with Nick Bosa at Ohio State. They were a formidable pair there. It was a very much of a third-round pick is something you could always recoup. It's something you can get. They're going to get that back, I believe, for
McGlinchey.
Yeah, for McGlinchey. But they've also had some coaches that left staff. Now with the NFL, the way it is, they give you compensatory picks if you have coaches, minority coaches, or coaches that leave and go somewhere else. And they lost a couple of coaches, so they're going to get that pick back. It's a very good deal for them to continue. The one thing the 49ers do when they get in trouble, they will add defensive linemen. They're right now in a bad spot of the number of games they've lost. But to add Chase Young for a third-round pick to go along with Randy Gregory and to go around with the other defensive players that they have, they're loading up with the possibility of not giving you the ability to throw the ball when you see them again the next time you get to meet them.
I think it's a good deal for the 49ers and obviously well put when it comes to CMC. My thing there is obviously that could be lightning in a bottle and you just never know. But kudos to them for what happened with McCaffrey. That's just been magnificent for them. And it's possible that Chase Young could be the same. But when you look at the risk reward, I mean, what did they risk? They risked a third round pick that they're going to get back anyway in the compensatory formula. So, I mean, this is basically a freebie for them. So if Chase Young cannot stay healthy in San Francisco, then okay, they let him walk in free agency next year and they get their third round pick back. But if he turns out to be an impact player and he comes anywhere near the potential of what he was at Ohio State, then they're that much more destructive as a defensive front. So yeah, that's definitely a fantastic trade for them, whether it works out or not. Because again, if it doesn't work, it didn't cost them anything ultimately. If it does work, then their needle points that much more due north in a situation where they're on a 3-game slide and they're really trying to do whatever they can to stop that. Yeah. This, theoretically helps them stop that. So, yeah.
That's like someone feasting on food, like
That's
you
already
have
full?
you already have your plate full. You don't need to keep stacking on it. Like leave it for some other people. I mean, everybody had their chance to make whatever.
Well,
trades.
that's the question. I think the bigger question is that the Bears overpay for Sweat. Montez Sweat ends up in Chicago for a second-round pick. Yeah. And that pick's going to end up to be likely maybe the first or second pick of the second round, which will be like picks 33, 34, if depending on where the Bears finish. So the Commanders pretty much cleaned up on that one. They got a pick, from the Bears for a player that they weren't going to re-sign, but so sometimes you overpay. I understand the 49ers doing what they did. I don't understand the Bears doing what they did in their trade.
I do think the Bears overpaid. I agree with you there. And we'll see.
To me, I think Young's more of a second round than a third round, and I think he's probably a better player than Sweat. Me personally, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's one of those moves that there's moves that were made. I didn't believe this, and I've said this too. Ezra Cleveland got the guard from the Minnesota Vikings got traded to Jacksonville. And I've come on this program before and been adamant about how hard it is to get starting offensive linemen on a trade. That proved my point wrong right there. I mean, that is a starting caliber young offensive lineman that goes from one team to another. Now, you have to do that when you have surplus. Obviously the Vikings felt like that Dalton Reisner, they added him, and they felt like that Dalton Reisner would probably be a better player. But there you go. A starting caliber offensive lineman goes from one team to another. And I've always believed that it was hard to get somebody to give you one of those offensive linemen.
Because they're hard to find.
They're hard to find. They're hard to find. And not everybody's willing to part, but Minnesota, and here's Minnesota in an interesting situation because they go out and trade for Josh Dobbs, who we all know good and well from his days when he played at Arizona against the Cowboys. So here you are. They're going out. Here's a team that's right now 4-4. They're thinking like we've won 3 straight. We're back in the hunt. We don't have a quarterback, but we got a quarterback, but we give up one of our starting offensive linemen. Boy, that's kind of an interesting dynamic. But let it be said now that people will be willing to give up starting caliber offensive linemen if you're willing to pay for them.
And then you're talking about NFC East teams that acquired a second-round pick for a trade. I mean, Leonard Williams, Giants. So, Giants send Leonard Williams over to the Seahawks. And the Cowboys will face him in Week 13, the week after Thanksgiving. So you'll see him on a very good Seattle Seahawks team like we talked about yesterday. But and we'll ultimately see what the Giants and Commanders do or don't do with those picks, because it's not like they've drafted well. But if we're focusing on the right now, I mean, 2 NFC East teams got weaker this week, and that's got to make the Cowboys feel that much better about their possibilities of taking this division. Of course, they have to go into Philadelphia and take care of business. That's job number one. But you're going against a Commanders front that is arguably or inarguably one of the best in the league, because the NFC East has defensive horses up front, period, all 4 teams. But the Commanders have always given the Cowboys hell with this setup of a defense. But now you got 2 guys that are gone, Montez Sweat, and Sweat was he seemed to always find ways to wreck the games against the Cowboys. So that's not a situation you got to deal with, and you haven't even played them yet. So you got 2 games against the Commanders. You got another game against a weakened Giants defensive front who's coming to AT&T Stadium in a couple weeks or so. So, I mean,
maybe they see it as like, well, it ain't going to happen this year. Might as well get a trade.
They're driving the tank right now.
I think Commanders are going to completely do what the Raiders just did. We saw the Raiders move on from their head coach and move on from their general manager. You have new ownership there at the Commanders. I think this is one of those things that, like, let's try and stock up some picks. Let's try and get with the Commanders, gives many top 100 picks. The possibility, they're probably still going to be looking for a quarterback. They might finish poor enough that they, have the opportunity to get in them that quarterback derby, but then they'll have some other picks to try and add some. I always felt like that they were a quarterback away, but Ron Rivera does some crazy things like that. They've had Philadelphia on the ropes twice this year and couldn't finish the job either time. And so, you look at ownership and they say, well, you know what, we're probably going to bring our own guy in, and here we go. And this is the start of it. But I mentioned what's going on with the Raiders. They fired the general manager and the coach and the offensive coordinator, here like halfway through the season. So
while we were all sleeping.
I think we're going to see more changes like that at the end of the season there.
Well, that's it really for any trade hopes that fans may have had. It did not happen, and the Cowboys and we've heard it. We talked about it on the show how Jerry Jones and everybody here fully trust the talent that they currently have on the roster right now. And we mentioned it yesterday too, how after the win that you had against the Rams, coming off something like that, a performance where all 3 phases of the game played really, really well, it's hard to kind of
my only fear is if something happens to one of these corners.
I was literally just about to say. My only thing is I would have made a move for cornerback depth, and without saying the player's name because we can't. There's a guy in the Windy City I think the Cowboys might have been in on, but it sounds like just in having conversations that the price tag that team had set for that player, no team was willing to go in for. So that's not a situation where the Cowboys were alone and kind of tightened the purse strings.
They're not desperate.
Yeah, so not just that. I mean, several other teams made a call for that particular player, and that price tag was just like, no, we're just not doing it. That's why he.
Well, Rasul Douglas went from Green Bay to Buffalo, so that you
wasn't that a second rounder?
That was a third? I believe is what that was. I think I'm sorry. Please don't come at me if I'm wrong about that. I thought it was a 3rd round pick that they gave up there. But to me,
it was still a premium pick.
It was, but it was a premium pick, as you're right. But to me, though, that's the thing about it. And we talked about this yesterday, and I just do believe it with my heart, is that Will McClay goes to the coaching staff and he says, hey, how can I help you? And the coaches say, we're good. We're good. I don't want to change. I don't want to do anything different. I'm happy with my guys. And, so there's a lot about that. We can kind of jump on the front office for the lack of movement. And of the teams that are in the playoff hunt right now, the Cowboys were the only team in the NFC that didn't make a move. Everybody else, Detroit, Philadelphia, all these teams made moves to try and at least add a player. But like I say, sometimes coaches just say, I don't want let's not bring anybody else in. We're gonna play with these guys, and we don't know that. I've been on staffs where that has happened, where the coaches just say, no, I just don't do it. Don't do it. We're good. And you don't want to ever bring somebody in for a coach and then they don't want the player and don't want to play the player, and then it turns into a bunch of butting of heads, and ultimately it kind of fractures the group and the trust with each other. I smell
tuna in that conversation. Yeah, that smells like tuna.
No, it's
if you catch my drift.
No. Bill was always interested in adding players, but he also, though, you almost, like I said, I believe I got fired here because I fought too hard for Charles Woodson, and I took it personal, and I shouldn't have taken it personal. I was too young in the department, and I knew that Charles Woodson, we were a bad team, and I'm trying to help. I'm trying to get players here. We don't have any players. And ultimately that's what got me fired with Bill. I mean, that Bill and I go way, way, way back to when he was in New England and I was in Green Bay, and we had a great relationship. And then he came here. I'm so glad he came here. I really was. After being 5-11, 3 straight years, I'm thinking, thank God we're gonna kind of get this thing turned around. Yeah, we're gonna turn this thing around. We're gonna be okay. And then ultimately, when you start to battle the head coach on players, the head coach generally will win.
Well, you can't win that battle.
I was too stupid to realize that I was fighting something bigger than what I was fighting, and that ultimately you got to be careful of that. When you don't want to push for something that the person in charge is ultimately saying, no, I don't want to do this. So always be careful of that.
Well, the Cowboys, like you said, Amber, their roster is set, and this is what they got until March as far as trades are concerned. So, I mean, at the end of the day, though, they're still 5-2, so there's promise there. They just played their first mostly complete game.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even still, that could have been a slightly cleaner game, which should give some more optimism as far as what this team can actually be. But again, it starts because they failed the first test.
They did.
Here comes the midterm. They have to pass this midterm.
Well, big and hard midterm coming up. So let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to get into the whole breakdown of the Philadelphia Eagles offense after this break.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't-stop-banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit unitedagandturf.com to find a location near you. Back to the break.
'Tis the season for youth football and dance camps presented by Invisalign. Don't miss out your chance to learn from the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and former NFL players at AT&T Stadium on December 22nd and 23rd. Celebrate the holidays with the Cowboys. Register today at dallascowboys.com/camps. That starts, we're doing this stuff on November 1st. Today's November 1st, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Yeah. November is here.
Go hang out. Go hang out with some of these camps. It was a lot of fun.
Welcome back. This is the second segment of the break presented by blockchain.com.
Ding.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay, before we get into the scouting report, let's just mention real quick Brandon Aubrey. It was just announced that he won NFC Player of the Week. Special Teams Player of the Week. Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Once again.
Well deserved, Butter.
Shutting people up in this podcast.
Way to go, Butter.
But no, great job. He's done an amazing job this season.
We're huge fans of Butter now. We're huge fans of Butter now.
We
Yeah,
love
absolutely.
it. All right.
Training camp, not so much.
Not so much, but yeah.
Kind of like that overly buttered popcorn you get in a movie.
Yeah.
It's a little too much.
But then you keep wanting more.
But
and
that
you like
overly
it.
buttered popcorn?
You start licking your fingers like,
Oh, God.
Nice.
It's
This is like
good.
food. Butter, honey. We're just grocery shopping this week in Cowboys Nation.
All right. I don't want to hear any of this that Brian is about to say, but let's hear it.
But it
We
has
got
to be
to
said.
Jalen Hurts. Let's start with the quarterback of the Eagles and how he's looking right now and some of the things that he's currently doing this season.
Yeah, I don't know if he's completely healthy right now, to be honest with you guys. When you watch him on tape, the word is that he might be dealing with a bone bruise on his knee. And so we need to kind of keep an eye on that. But he's still playing at a high level, though the interceptions are a problem for him. He's taken some chances on some deep balls that have been a little bit of problematic for him. But the strength of his game is to be able to play on the move. We all kind of understand that with him. But he just doesn't appear in the games that I studied that he was really interested in running unless he absolutely has to. And so it might be a little bit of a different quarterback there with the Cowboys when you see him this week. The thing that you have to do against Jalen Hurts, absolutely have to do this against him, is you have to make him hold the ball. He is a different quarterback when he has to deal with pressure. His accuracy tends to fade, and then the turnovers creep into his game. 5 of his 8 interceptions are those when he's had to deal with pressure. So the longer you can make Jalen Hurts hold the ball, move, back up, move, the likelihood he's either going to throw it away or you can possibly get an interception. Maybe that he'll force the ball on you a little bit. Teams have kind of played him in a way where when you watch the tape, it's more of man coverage. I was surprised how much man coverage that he faces. Especially with that receiving crew that he has. But teams play a lot of man coverage, and he's only really a 64% passer when he faces all this man coverage. So maybe people are looking at the metrics, but you could definitely see it on tape that they're trying to kind of cover his guys and then make him have to make some of those throws. Where they kill you is in a couple of different areas.
Well, you were going to keep talking about.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick. One of the 2 areas that he kills you is the deep ball is a problem, and then also the screens. That's when he's throwing the ball down the field. Deep balls, he's almost a 50% passer, and the majority of his touchdowns have been throwing like the go routes to the guys. They got receivers that have the ability to get down the field and can separate, and Hurts will just launch that thing. And he's taken 23 deep shots this year. He's got 6 touchdowns, and every one of them are just these kind where they just blow past. They get separation at the line, or they'll be like zone coverage, and they'll just run by the cornerbacks, and then he'll just launch the ball.
And sometimes those screens can be pretty successful against this Cowboys defense.
Yeah, he is when he throws the ball in the flat. This is where the touch and the accuracy, and like they do a lot of wide receiver screens. They do screens to the tight end. They do screens to the back. So he's kind of throwing the ball around the line of scrimmage, but it's kind of like it kind of lulls you into some sleep where you're like, okay, short, and then all of a sudden it goes over the top. and now you're
how they get you.
dealing with that. So I think the passes he throws, those screen type passes or the underneath passes, those are the ones that start out small and then they end up being huge with run after catch with these guys. They are really, really good at that. But he doesn't miss those passes on the flats or underneath or anything down the field. In the middle of the field is when he tends to have a little bit of problem, but you got to get pressure on this guy. Every quarterback you have to get pressure, but it really affects him the longer he has to hold the ball. He kind of loses track of where he is, and he loses track of where everything is down the field. So coverage on the outside, pressure somehow makes him become a different quarterback.
You know what's very interesting about Jalen Hurts, in addition to everything that Brian is saying, is that he's much more comfortable throwing to the left of the line of scrimmage. If you go back, and this is obviously via Next Gen Stats, which is just phenomenal, of his 8 interceptions that he's thrown, 6 of them have been to the right of the line of scrimmage. He's thrown 6 interceptions when forced to throw to that right, but he has 6 touchdowns, 6 of his touchdowns when forced to throw to the left with no interceptions in that area, and I'm talking deep, shallow, and in the flat. So if you're looking for a weakness in his game, an additional weakness of his game, force him to stay right as far as his progressions. Once he comes across middle, back left, that's when you're really going to get in trouble. So that is very interesting, something to keep an eye out on for the Cowboys. Maybe they can bring that pressure and keep him turned this way, because then that's a liability for him.
When teams, it used to be with Russell Wilson with the Seahawks, because how short he was, you make him play backwards.
Yeah.
And when Russell Wilson would play backwards, he can't throw the ball over the top because he can't see. Well, with Hurts, when you see him start to drift and he goes back and he drifts and he just keeps drifting, and that usually spells problems for him. It's when and I don't think he wants to run now. Now, maybe I'm going to be dead balls wrong about this when it comes up.
Well, when you talk about
he does look like he's hurt.
He does not look like the same. And maybe he's playing possum on us right now, kind of acting like he's hurt, but he's not. But you watch the tape, he's not really interested in running with the ball. That's not his, especially like you look at the Commanders game this past week, it just wasn't that wasn't the case.
Is he the type of player when you get enough pressure on him, does that begin to wear as the game goes on, as far as like how focused he stays in the game, or does that messes up his confidence, basically?
I think he's always been a confident player, and I understand what you're saying. Like, if you keep hitting him, is he going to make more mistakes and stuff
well,
like
knowing that he's already hurt and he's dealing with that.
Right. His offensive line helps him so much in a lot of this stuff. I mean, if his confidence is going to go away, it's because his offensive line is completely falling apart, and they normally don't do that.
All right, let's take our final break. When we come back, we'll get right into the offensive line and some of those guys, what they have against this Cowboys defensive line.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Don't put off getting your oil changed, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, order, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized Intense Therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to the break.
Experience the most electrifying event on the holiday season, Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza, powered by Reliant. Every Friday and Saturday night from November 17th through December 16th, the Cowboys Christmas Extravaganza ignites the Star in Frisco with an unforgettable holiday performance showcasing 65 performers, including the world-renowned Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, Santa Claus, and appearances from your favorite Dallas Cowboys football heroes. Visit thestardistrict.com for more info. You ever gone out and seen them with the Christmas Christmas tree out there?
It's a very nice show. I haven't done that because he was too little, but maybe this time around. Very, very nice, fun show for the family and everyone to come out. Yeah, really cool. All right, let's dive right into this O-line. We're running out of time, I feel, with so much information that's still left to be discussed. So tell me, very, very impressive line that they have.
Yeah, it is very impressive the way they play. I think with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson at tackles, I think that really is the anchor where they're at. They don't give these guys a lot of help. They block one-on-one. Lane Johnson's the better of the athlete. Mailata's the bigger of the guy. You don't want to just run right in down the middle of Mailata. He will cause all kinds of problems for you that way. With his strength and his power, you got to try and work the edges, and you can. Both these guys do a great job, almost to the point of cheating the snap. And when I mean cheating the snap, the way they kick away, they have incredible vision to the inside to be able to see when Kelsey snaps the ball, and they're moving actually as the ball is being moved as well. Sometimes they might be a little early, and officials give them, and they line up a little deeper at times to try and help themselves, but they get away with it. But these tackles are really, really good. I like DeMarcus Lawrence, though, against Lane Johnson on this one, though. I think there's been times where he has been really good against him because he understands how to break Lane Johnson down. Like with his hands, with the way he rushes him. Lane Johnson at times has had problems getting his hands on him. He's been able to dip him a couple of times. So that's a tough matchup for Lane Johnson. DeMarcus really, really has a good feel for how to play them. If I think inside where the Eagles might have a little bit of a weakness is Sui Apeta. And I think Apeta he's right now he's playing in the lineup because of Cam Jurgens is being out at guard. But you see with Apeta, he's one of those guys that when he gets a little tall and then all of a sudden like teams will run into him and get under him and you can carry him back in the pocket. Now, the problem with the Eagles is they play like 98% of the time they're going to be in shotgun. So if you're going to drive him to the quarterback, it's probably going to be at shotgun depth. It's not going to be like take the snap and then drop and then make that push. But this is a team that does a good job with their pin and pull stuff that the Cowboys have trouble with. They can zone block it. They can morph into whatever they're going to do running the football. They get in that sidecar look. They hand the ball, or they get pistol behind and they hand the ball. But this line they got some bully mentality to them in the way they come off the football. They'll get into you. They'll push. If you try and get up the field, they'll just kind of take you wherever you want to go. They're not really trying to just totally hammer you, but they get into you, kind of knock you around a little bit. And if you want to go up the field, they'll just wheel you up the field, and then their backs will make the cuts from that. So, yeah, I feel like though that it's one of those lines that is really good with their athletic ability. They've got the size. Jason Kelsey, he's nearing the end of a really outstanding career at center. what he lacks in power, he makes up with just old-fashioned smarts. He's been a really good foot athlete throughout his career. He's a position blocker. He can reach, scoop, grab you, turn you. He's perfect for what they do with their pin and pull stuff. He's not going to overpower anybody. I would take advantage of him by putting somebody on his nose and making him have to take that guy one-on-one. He's a little bit of a different center when he has a bubble over him, when there's nobody over the top of him. I would make him have to snap, play the power game, and try and do those kinds of things because you can kind of make him get pushed back a little bit because of the lack of power. But this is a pretty damn good offensive line from the 5 guys across that they've got.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a strength against strength when you look at the strength of the offensive line in Philadelphia versus the strength of the Cowboys' defensive line, and that's across the board. And particularly, we keep talking about a guy like Osa, and Cowboys are going to need him to step up again, and as he's continued to do, and I'm confident that he can do it in Philadelphia. But what will help the Philadelphia Eagles, and hopefully this is not going to be allowed by the Cowboys and or Jalen Hurts' knee, because I do think that they're understating what's going on there, is as long as Jalen Hurts is forced to play inside the pocket, then the Cowboys' defensive line has that much better of a chance of winning those one-on-one matchups up front. It's when Jalen Hurts provides the threat of stretching the line and getting off those edges. That's when you kind of have to try to worry if you got to play the lateral game, you got to play east and west in addition to north-south. If you can just get these guys, the Cowboys' defensive line, playing north-south, they have a much better chance of doing things like pushing back Kelsey and getting the best of some of those other guys like Mailata, who's, the strength. That guy's a force. Yeah. So just don't let Jalen Hurts and that running game, and I'm talking about the backs as well, DeAndre Swift, obviously, who is much better on the outside in space than he would be doing the dirty work in those interior gaps. Keep those guys running up the middle and keep Jalen Hurts contained, and you can win those battles more often than not. You're not going to win every single battle against this Eagles offensive line. But if you do those two things and just make them play north-south, then you have a much better chance of winning more often than not.
Yeah, to Patrick's point, though, and we were talking about the quarterback, 76% of those metrics will tell you 76% of the time the snaps the quarterback's going to throw from the pocket. So there obviously is something going on with his health that he is, he's more committed to throwing the ball in the middle of the pocket than he is throwing it on the outside.
Well, let's talk about some of the weapons that he has in the passing game.
Yeah, it is. We all understand if you're if you're a fantasy football player or whatever, you understand. You know who A.J. Brown is. He's one of the best deep threats in the NFL today. He's a big body guy, and once he gets that big body going, he can be tough to stop. He does an outstanding job. He tracks the ball really well. Hurts does a great job of putting the ball right on him in stride, and you tend to have a lot of opportunities because teams don't always play these guys. Like I said, when they play them in man coverage, it's a little bit of a different game for them. But when they play off, these guys can just eat you up, much like what the Cowboys do. You give them free access and routes. They run their routes. They catch the ball, and then they're up the field. So I would try and disrupt him as much as I could at the line. I know it's a big body guy. I know that could be a problem for Gilmore and guys like that. But I think if you give him a free run up the field, these routes are not complex.
Nope.
They really aren't. When you watch, I'm thinking, it's the Rams, it's the 49ers, a lot of their stuff is on the short yardage stuff. It's combination between a tight end and a receiver, and there's a lot of picks, and it's inside out, and then down the field it's up in the middle. A lot of the balls are thrown towards the middle.
They just know how to execute it.
They just do a great job of executing what they have, and the quarterback finds a way to get them. They got protection. They get the routes executed, but it's not something that's just this blow-your-mind kind of route combinations. It's a pretty simple way of playing football, but they get protection. They get their quarterback gets the ball out to them, and then they got guys that can finish on the play. So I'm not going to let these guys have any free access and routes. I'm just going to make them – it all goes back to my plan of making Hurts have to hold the football. The longer he has to throw, the better –
the more trouble you're in.
Yeah, exactly. When he holds the ball, he's going to have some problems. That's what they need to kind of focus on in this game. Him, and then I'm talking about Brandon and also Smith. Devonta Smith doesn't have the physical size of Brown, but his downfield presence is just as impressive. Where he is really good is when they do what I call that two-man game, where his routes will take him inside and then there'll be a pick. Or like he's really good on when they need 6-7 yards on the outside. He runs outs all day. He is a throw it to him, catch, tap, tap. Throw it to him, catch, tap, tap. He's one of those guys when it comes to running the out routes and stuff. He's super comfortable knowing getting past the sticks, coming to the sticks, catching the ball, and then getting the first down.
I think this is a game where I would love to stick Bland on A.J. Brown as much as possible. Bland is going to be your most physical guy, and a great point from Brian. You want to try to disrupt A.J. Brown at the line of scrimmage. Bland is going to give you the best opportunity to do that. The question then becomes, how can the Cowboys keep a shifty, quick guy like Devontae Smith from potentially, dragging an older Stephon Gilmore across the middle of the field and getting some of those ends of those slants? Be interested to see how they attack that. I think that also goes to the linebackers. They're going to have to help safeties obviously as well. But let's not forget, we're talking about A.J. Brown, rightfully so. That's a guy who has over 900 yards in his first 8 games. He's just monster now. Dallas Goedert, he can change the game for him as well. So paging Jaron Kearse, because this is a big assignment for Jaron Kearse at tight end.
Yeah, neither one of these tight ends can block. Dallas Goedert and Jack Stoll are really not that great of blockers. But where I worry about Dallas Goedert is this. They're 8 for 8 on throwing screens to this guy. Mm-hmm. That's where all of a sudden he's blocking. You lose track of he's blocking, and now he goes out and they throw him a screen. Right. And delayed screens. You just kind of like act like you're blocking, turn around, get everybody upfield. Dallas has proven they really haven't been playing the screens all that well. I guarantee you we're going to see some screens in this game. Dallas Goedert, though, 8 for 8, and when you throw him the screen, he had one of those was for a touchdown that I saw. There's no question that the Eagles are going to use him in that way, delay, lose track of where he is, and then throw him the football.
And I know we're about to wrap up the final segment. Before we do, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, we didn't talk about the tush push, obviously, and how the Cowboys are going to have a challenge in stopping that. But I think the Eagles made kind of a mistake last week against the Commanders in revealing a wrinkle they did not have to reveal out of that tush push. I think it was 31-26.
Yeah.
And 3rd and 1. And they're deep in the red zone, and instead of they line up for the tush push, but they hand it off to Devontae Smith with Stoll and Goddard as the blockers on the outside, and not Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
And DeAndre Swift basically just walks in. So they've basically shown the Cowboys like, hey, that's a possibility. So I would love the Cowboys to keep that in mind, because that means not every time they line up for that tush push are they actually going to do it. So at least keep one of your linebackers honest back there and ask your big boys up front to stop that tush push, because otherwise somebody's going to leak out the back.
Didn't you guys ask Dan Quinn about this the other day? Didn't he say he had some type of plan or what they they were going to try and do? So everybody has
some type of plan.
Yeah, I've seen everybody has a plan for this until they run it and it's a first down, that kind of thing.
I just think the Eagles did the Cowboys a favor by revealing that wrinkle when they didn't have to, because they hadn't revealed that wrinkle yet.
It's kind of like Bones showing that he could throw the ball to Golston on a field goal when he really didn't have to.
Right.
Yep. Well, before we end the segment, I know Patrick talked a little bit about Swift, the running back, and what they're doing, but anything else you want to add on how the running game is currently going for them?
Yeah, I could say Swift's averaging almost 5 yards a carry, and like Patrick was talking about, he's going to try and run it inside, but I think he's a little bit more successful off the edges. But he doesn't have the elusiveness, of Gainwell. Gainwell doesn't have the yards, but there was a sneaky run that Gainwell had against the Patriots where he kind of took it inside, and then he bounced it outside, and then they were on the edge, and then it was a problem. It was one of his longer gains of the year. But Swift is extremely tough. They use him. They empty the formation. They'll throw him the football, too. That's another thing that they kind of like to do with him. But the running style is pretty similar to what the Cowboys have been facing here the last several weeks. Downhill, physical runners, not these home run kind of hitters of backs. I didn't feel like that. Everything seemed like he was getting tackled 3, 4, 5 yards, in that situation, but a lot of inside runs, trying to be physical, hand it off, see if he can make the cut, and just power over people.
And the confidence here is I don't see Swift now, because he's not the same Swift he was at UGA. I don't see him much different from trying to defend Austin Eckler, for example. And you saw how the Cowboys were able to use Marquise Bell and help bottle up Austin Eckler. I think that would be a similar game plan to try to bottle up DeAndre Swift as well.
So for this one, you could basically say the Cowboys defense has bigger problems to deal with than focusing on the running game.
If the quarterback is banged up, that is a clear advantage for the Cowboys, because anything to keep him from running will be now. Everything could change. He could say, "Okay, I'm hurt, but I'm still going to run."
Yeah.
But if it doesn't look like he is really, really interested in doing it right now,
at this point of the season, obviously, I mean, at any point, you always got to protect and worry about your quarterback and their health.
One reason the Cowboys and Dak hadn't been running until these past couple of weeks.
Sure.
So, I mean, again, risk mitigation, because at this point in the season, you still have a lot of football left to play, and Jalen Hurts has to ask himself whenever he takes off the run with a knee that we think might be worse off than what they're letting on, he has to consider, like, is this first down worth, possibly losing the next several games because he's sidelined with a worse knee injury. So the fact that he might have to process that in his head, again, that goes to adding leverage to the Cowboys defense.
To your question, they've got a lot of things to worry about with
yeah, they do.
They got plenty. All right, well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Brian, Patrick. We'll be back tomorrow, where Brian's going to break down the whole Philadelphia defense versus the Cowboys offense. For Patrick Walker, Brian Broaddus, I'm Ember Garcia. This has been The Break on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!